And brought to you by the UCCS Campus Alumni Office, also the Campus Career Center, and the College of Business Career Development Center, which is where I'm housed. I'm Megan Stowe. I'm the Assistant Dean for External Relations for the College of Business, and we are so excited to offer this for you today. We have also partnered let's go over a little bit of Webex etiquette before we get started here. So please keep in mind to keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking to help minimize that feedback. Please feel free to put comments into the chat box. We will be checking the chat box and monitoring that. So if you have questions, please feel free to pop them in there. We will have time for Q&A at the end. If you have any technical issues, please chat with Danny Pape, and he will be able to help you with that. So if you open the chat box, as you can see on the slide here, you can type a question into everyone, or you can pick Danny specifically to help with some technical issues. So perfect. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, Jacob, for saying hi to everybody and testing out the chat feature there. That's great. So we are also partnered today with the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC. And so UCCS, the College of Business, we work very closely with the Chamber and EDC on a variety of programs. And this is just one way that we have partnered to really help connect students to the local business community. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cecilia Harry, the Chief Economic Development Officer, to talk a little bit about the Chamber and our partnership.
Thank you, Megan. Yes, hello everybody. I'm Cecilia Harry. I work here at the Chamber and EDC, and I'm very pleased that you're here today and you're getting a chance to experience the partnership that we have with UCCS. We see current UCCS students and alum as critical to our current and future workforce. So whether you have been employed in the region for a long time or in earlier stages of your career, we know that a lot of great talent comes out of UCCS, and we want to help you find your way in our regional economy with many employers who are hiring at this time and looking for people with the skill sets that come out of UCCS programs. So I'm going to go ahead and put some resources in the chat. One is our job listing, that a resource that we put together in recent months to help job seekers more easily navigate companies in the area that are hiring. I'm also going to put a link up to our Pikes Peak Workforce Center partner. They actually have some really awesome tools. They're not just for folks that are seeking a specific unemployment benefit or claim. There's actually some really great resources and tools to help you better position yourself and tell your story as a job seeker better. So I'm going to put the two resources in there along with my email address, and I encourage you to reach out to me directly if I or anybody on my team can be of assistance to you as you think about your next chapter here, contributing to the workforce here in the Pikes Peak region. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you so much for that, Cecilia, and those great resources. They're important for everyone. Before we move on, I did fail to mention that at the end of the webinar, there will be a survey link that will be posted in the chat. We would really appreciate your feedback. So once the webinar is over, if you would check the chat, click on that survey, and provide us with some feedback to help us improve our future programming, we would greatly appreciate that. So moving on now, we are going to introduce our panelists. So we have three individuals joining us today, all who recruit and hire here in the Colorado Springs community. We have Jacob and Eric, both from CED, which is Consolidated Electrical Distributors. We have two locations here in Colorado Springs, and they are the managers at both of those locations. And then from Northwestern Mutual, we have Ashley Pallas, and she is our recruiter for Northwestern Mutual. And so they're going to answer a couple of questions that some kind of the common questions we've been getting from students and alumni about what the workforce currently looks like and what you can expect moving forward and what recruiters are really looking for. So with that, we'll go ahead and move forward with our first question. And Ashley, I'm going to turn this over to you first. Could you please tell us what the workplace looks like during this pandemic, and how do you believe the workplace will change as a result?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. By the way, I just want to say thanks for inviting me here. super excited, and I think there's a whole lot of opportunities out there. So I think the best way I look at this question, how has it changed? I think people are really quick during this time to say, oh, a lot of things have changed for the worse. Like, we lost a lot of opportunities with this pandemic. And I always like to flip it and say, but let's look at the things that have changed for the better. So when we kind of were all in that work from home space, I know there was about 2 months that our office, specifically in Colorado Springs and Castle Rock, were all 100% remote. I think that taught our company a lot, and I'm sure it taught a whole lot of other companies that I've had conversations with, kind of the more of a little bit of a flexibility that goes with working in an office, working from home. Now I think the shift that I've seen in our industry, so the financial industry, the financial planning industry in specific, we can do a whole lot in a remote setting. So that's the biggest change. So now it feels almost more flexible than it was before. Everybody's encouraged to be in the office, and then with the pandemic, they say, well, you kind of have a little bit more flexibility there. That's the biggest shift. Having the opportunity in a lot of workspaces to be flexible, I think that gives people a lot of options in a lot of different careers. So I'd say that's the main thing, how it's changed. I want to say there's a few industries in specific that I think have taken off. So for people who are searching for jobs, just getting out of college, or alumni who look to make a shift, I think it's so easy to focus on, well, the industry I wanted to be a part of is no longer hiring, they're downsizing. But if we can take a look at all of the industries out there who have taken off during the pandemic, if I think of conversations I've had with pilots, folks who did kind of commercial work in their career, now they're looking at, flying for like FedEx. There's a whole lot more roles open like that. Those shipping companies, a lot of remote marketing companies, a lot of the financial industry has kind of moved to a remote setting too. So it's very interesting to see. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ashley. Eric, I'll turn to you. Would you like to address this question and share your thoughts, please?
Sure. So I would say in our industry, not a lot has changed. We were viewed as an essential business, so we were open and officing the entire time. My location went through about 8 weeks where we split shifted. Half of my team was at home and the other half was here. But what we learned very quickly was we were trying to service the same amount of business with 50% of our workforce, which was not maintainable. So after about 8 weeks, we decided to go full staff. Now we are obviously observing all of the different mask requirements. We're doing some things like daily temperature checks when people come into the building. We are not allowing outside visitors without an appointment, and they are required to fill out a questionnaire when they arrive, as well as have their temperature taken. I don't think going forward much changes for Jacob and I. We have been very, very blessed that the construction industry has maintained a high level of health through the entire pandemic. Probably, I'd say, minus maybe the first 5 to 7 days when people were trying to get their bearings. So I'll kind of end it there and maybe give Jacob an opportunity to share his thoughts.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I think from the perspective of CED being a wholesale construction supportive type of organization, right? Eric said it well in that we were viewed as essential, so that we did have to. It's hard to service a contractor and give them material or be in front of them on a oh shoot, what's the term I'm looking for? On a consultant type basis when you're not able to in fact be in front of them in person, right? So for that reason, we had to keep our doors open. We had to keep trucks on the road. We had to keep material being delivered. However, I think that for several of our staff, as well as our business as a whole, we're able to see some true resiliency and some innovation. Hey, what was thought of to be status quo in the workplace, much like Ashley said, we come to the office, we do something because that's kind of how we've always done it. That's not necessarily the case anymore. Yeah, at the end of the day, we definitely still have to be in our building to an extent, but hey, what if we did a few things different, right? We were able to see some really intuitive people come up with different ideas to isolate, to create some distance, to still engage with customers and people in our marketplace, while adhering to a higher level of distancing, of cleanliness, whatever the case may be. So, you know, as much as things haven't really changed from the perspective of CED and the supply of electrical goods to a construction industry, you know, Eric and I have been challenged in managing people, managing their great ideas and their fears, right? I mean, there's no doubt there's a lot of fear that surrounds this whole epidemic as well. So yeah, things have changed. Things have stayed the same. We've gotten to see a lot of really cool ideas from a lot of really smart people that work in our organizations. So yeah, that's kind of CED's my story, at least with CED for sure.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to see how the different industries, some have gone virtual, some have certainly stayed in person, and to Ashley's point, some industries have really taken off and grown during this time as well. Moving on, let's talk specifically about people who are looking for jobs. So Ashley, I'll come back to you. What is your organization doing right now to connect with talent? So a lot of the traditional methods that we might see that companies are using to find talent might look a little different now. So could you please share what you're doing?
Of course. So I guess our process has stayed the same. A lot of it's just kind of become remote. So where I would have somebody come into the office and I get to shake their hand and see their face and chat with them for an hour. Now it's like, here's a Zoom link, we'll connect at noon. I'll see you then. It's actually less time consuming when it's become remote. So that's an interesting way that we have changed just our selection process. In all honesty, I think the way we find talent has become a little bit more dynamic, but in the same way, it's really kind of remained consistent. We really do grow on a referral basis still. A lot of our advisors come to us from existing clients. So we still see a lot of that. Our advisors will speak with a client and they'll say, you know, hey, I lost my job. I was in so-and-so career. And oftentimes that's when I get introduced to them. So it's a little bit of who you know. I think that's a big thing in just the job search like world. A lot of it is who you know. But our online presence has exploded as well. So we also use kind of an Indeed program a little bit. So we'll have a whole lot of resumes come through there. And we also, I mean, LinkedIn is huge too. Our advisors here kind of connect with folks all around Colorado. So sometimes it'll show up on their little bio, like looking for jobs, searching for jobs, things like that. So we see that come through a lot. There's multiple ways we find talent, but I would say, yeah, the online presence has just exploded in the last couple of months.
Great, thank you. Jacob, what are you doing to connect with talent?
Yeah, You know, I think that with most industries in general, people are your most important asset, right? Without high quality and highly capable people, your chances of success in an industry, especially in a business industry, they're going to be very slim. So high quality talent, Eric and I think share a lot of the same resources. Eric can probably speak to some of his better than I can, but definitely like an Indeed and Salesforce, or I'm sorry, not Salesforce, Indeed and gosh, I was just on Salesforce. My apologies. Indeed, Monster, LinkedIn for sure. Definitely some different social media platforms. But then obviously UCCS has also been a huge partner of ours and trying to find talent. Eric and I were honestly on a conference call earlier this morning and talking about what we haven't done in the past has been very good in the digital space, right? Just trying to find talent, interview digitally, just connect digitally. And that's some stuff that going into this next school year, looking at talking with some digital marketing firms, right? So that we can be relevant, we can be good, and we don't just want to be good, we want to be excellent, because we want excellent people, so they deserve the best out of us, and trying to find them too, right? So, yeah, networking through digital and social media platforms is huge for us, as well as networking. You know, I hammer my UCCS alumni probably on a monthly basis. Hey, who do you know? Who's looking? Because the quality of student out of UCCS I found has been rather superior. So that's one of the ways that we're looking to connect with talent, or ways that we are connecting with talent.
Thank you. Eric, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just kind of echo what Jacob said. I mean, we're having to find ways to be inventive about how we go about it. I think that we're definitely utilizing Indeed and LinkedIn as much as we possibly can. To echo what Jacob said, we spoke this morning for about an hour about what it looks like going forward. You know, the interview process has certainly looked different for us, whether we are utilizing Fuse, Zoom, or even just a telephone call, and trying to determine from those platforms when it makes sense to bring a candidate in. I'm still a face-to-face guy. Want to do that as much as we can when it's responsible and when it makes sense. I think going forward for CED specifically, the way we are attempting to recruit will look vastly different, to Jacob's point, using more digital platforms.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. And so, I mean, big takeaways there, I think, for our alumni are definitely to work on networking, because it is really big on who you know in the referral system. For those of you who are searching for roles this fall, the Campus Career Center and the College of Business will be partnering with the Alumni Office to offer some virtual opportunities for alumni to connect with employers. So in the College of Business, we have Career Networking Night that will be held in September. And CED and Northwestern Mutual both typically participate in Career Networking Night, but we'll be doing it through a system called Handshake. And I encourage you to visit the UCCS Career Center's website to look at upcoming events, and then also to get a link to Handshake where you can view job postings for employers who are specifically looking for UCCS students and alumni. So it's a great way, and we're continually looking to improve our virtual efforts because we have employers like CED and Northwestern Mutual who are really trying to connect with you all. So that's the best place that you can find them, and we'll keep you updated throughout the semester. And Danny just put in the chat the link to the UCCS career website, so please check it out there. Okay, so moving forward, we'd like to know what advice you have for individuals who are searching for positions. So what can they do to help make themselves more marketable or to connect with employers in this during this time? So Ashley, we'll come back to you.
Perfect. So I endless advice for this. I could probably talk all day about this. I recently had the opportunity to work with transitioning military members who are now looking for full-time, just civilian roles. So I would say a lot of it, obviously, transitioning from college to kind of a full-time role is different than that. I'd say there are a lot of parallels in that. I think tip number one, and I can't stress this enough, any interview you get, even if you don't find yourself to be a fit for the role you're interviewing for, is an opportunity. So I think that's so huge. I think just an example of that, there's actually a gentleman that I interviewed for a role here probably about a year ago. He was actually a UCCS grad, super, super sharp dude, very, very professional, responsive, and had a great kind of a follow-up game himself. So it didn't end up being a fit for him, but there was another role that came up about a month later, and he was the first one I called. And now he's one of our top investment operation guys here. So I would say if that speaks to anything, I think every opportunity that you look at, especially in this time, take that as not only a job opportunity, but a networking opportunity. There are so many connections out there. Employers talk to so many people. So if you're not a fit for the role you're looking at with them, make sure you keep a professional relationship and make sure your follow-up with them is frequent enough that you're relevant. I'd say my next thing is, especially if you're applying for a job online, do what you can to connect with somebody from that office. Because I can tell you, I have so many resumes sitting in my inbox right now that I've not even had time to look at a lot of them. They actually just hired another gal to help me with that. So hopefully that'll be the case eventually. But for somebody, I had a gentleman who applied online, figured out he had a connection, looked on LinkedIn, figured out he had a connection in the office, and then got connected with me that way. And now he's in our selection process. So if there's any way to do it, I don't want to speak for every company, because some people, maybe that's not their preference, but if there's a pool of 100 people applying online and you're not getting a quick response or any response of the companies, see what you can do to get your foot in the door in a different way. That would be my hopefully best advice.
Great, thank you, Ashley. Eric, I'll look to you. What advice do you have?
My encouragement would be for folks looking for employment to utilize all the platforms that are available to them, be it the platforms at UCCS, career networking nights. If you aren't putting yourself out there, we don't know you're there. To Ashley's point, if you have applied or responded to one of our online ads, differentiate yourself. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and initiate a phone call and tell us something about you. When you are pouring through 150 or 200 online applicants, I try to personally make it a point to give every single applicant the same look. 200's a lot to get through. Differentiate yourself. Don't be afraid to pick the phone up and let us know who you are. Let us know what you're applying for. At a career networking night, even if you aren't interested in us, stop and talk to us. Make sure that we know who you are. Network, network, network. That's the most important thing you can do, in my opinion.
Thank you, Eric. Jacob, what advice would you like to share?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that people probably don't think about all the time, and maybe should, is, at least from my perspective as an employer, I am constantly evaluating people, right? And be it at a restaurant, be it at a car dealership, wherever I happen to be, right? I'm constantly evaluating a person, the way they present themselves, the way that they speak, the way that they are. Are they dressed professionally, right? stuff like that. Just know that you're constantly being evaluated by somebody, right? And some of the most intriguing interviews and potential hires that I've ever had or come across came from eating lunch at a restaurant, or heck, I bought a truck 4 months ago, and probably 2 weeks later, I was interviewing the kid that sold me the truck because he was a rock star, right? And so you're constantly being evaluated. I think that's thing number one is know how you're presenting yourself, right? Thing number two, I think that's uber important, along with what Ashley and Eric have shared, is now I'm drawing a blank. Oh yeah, I really appreciate when a candidate does some research on us, or on the business in which they're or company in which they're applying to, as well as the position in which they're applying for. Google is crazy powerful. I remember back in my time in college, Google was starting to become a thing. Now I'm pretty darn certain that Google is in Webster's dictionary as a verb, right? I mean, Google is a thing now, and it's so powerful. You can spend 5 minutes Googling an organization, figuring out something about them, right? And now when you bring that up in conversation, or personalize your resume, what does it say to us as an employer? It says, holy smokes, you have taken the time, regardless of if it's 5 minutes or 55 minutes or whatever, right? You've at least taken the time to say, you know what, this is important to me, and I'm taking it seriously, right? So thing one, you're constantly being evaluated wherever you are. Thing two, I personally, and I think a lot of employers do, we appreciate people that put in the time and effort to know the organization in which they're applying to and the position in which they're applying for. So those are probably my two pieces of advice, Megan.
Great, thank you. And I would say, if you're trying to build your network, or you're interested in a specific company and maybe you haven't been hearing back from them, the UCCS Career Center or the College of Business Career Development Center, if you're a business major, we have connections in the community. So if you give me a call and say, hey, I'm really interested in Northwestern Mutual or CED or any other company in the community, there's a good chance that we have a connection there. And if we don't, I'm always willing to build that connection, because if our students are interested in an employer, then we want to be connected to them. So please don't use your resources, reach out to us, and we'd be happy to be that conduit for you to meet wonderful recruiters like those that we have on the call today. And I can email any one of them and say, hey, I have a resume and a candidate for you, and this is the job I think they would be a great fit for. And you will get a reply. So please use your resources and reach out to us. We'd love to help you too. Great. So I'm going to go through a few resources and takeaways, and then we're going to open it up for some questions and answers. So if anyone has a question for the panelists, you can feel free to write it in the chat or just unmute yourself when we get to that point. But before we open it up for Q&A, I wanted to share a few things for you. So these are some timely resources to help you during your job search. So LinkedIn has a list of companies that are hiring as a result of business surges during this time. So we mentioned that there are some industries that are really seeing an increase in demand, and LinkedIn has a whole list of companies that are looking to hire. So that's a great resource. If you're looking at internship opportunities, if that's an option for you, there's a rolling list of companies who are either hiring, canceling, or freezing their internships. So it's just a good resource to go and look at the status of an internship program. There's also another list of just rolling company statuses. So if there's a certain company that you're interested in, you can visit that link and look to see if they're hiring, or if maybe they have frozen their hiring practices for this time. So just kind of help you do your research, as Jacob said earlier, and know the company. And then there's some labor market information with a resource called WHAM, which is part of the Economic Forum here at UCCS. And you can visit WHAM and actually look at the number of job postings per industry in the region. So it's more localized information. So here in the Pikes Peak region, what is the demand for different industries? If you have questions about any of these resources or you need additional information, please feel free to reach out to me, and we would be happy to, or Danny, and we'd be happy to answer some questions there. So this webinar is a series, is a part of a series of other webinars. And so we have one webinar left in this series. So on August 18th, we will have a Design Your Work Life webinar, and we hope that you all join us for that presentation as well. And if you've joined us for multiple webinars, we hope that you have really enjoyed this series, as we have tried to provide some career enrichment to our alumni. And we also have our Alumni Virtual Career Fair, which is Wednesday, August 26th from 10 to 4. And this is virtual and online. It's your opportunity to connect with employers all over the state and region, and is totally free for you to attend. So make sure that you look for this information. I'm sure we have some emails going out to alumni about this, and you can certainly register to attend. We'd love to have you participate. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. And we do have a couple questions in the chat. So Joanna from our alumni office wants to know how important it is to be able to speak to remote work skills and experience right now. So are employers interested in learning about that? So who would like to chat about that from our panelists? Which one of you would like to take that question? Jacob, go for it, Jacob.
Yeah, hey, so I guess I want to clarify that a little bit. How important is it to be able to speak to remote work? But how good are you at working remotely? Is that kind of what the question is?
Yes. So how working remotely and using those your remote work skills? Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I think one of the things, yeah, you want to definitely be able to kind of puff your chest a little bit, if that makes sense, right? Like a peacock or whatever. You want to be able to speak to your skill set. I think from an employer standpoint, that's got to be one of your skills, right? We want to know how adaptable are you, right? Like if I hear you talking to me about remote work skills, like perfect, great, you're adaptable. That's what it tells me, right? But I mean, if that's just the only thing that you want to focus on, I would advise against that, right? I mean, I don't think that's probably what you're getting at, but yeah, I phrase it and frame it in such a fashion that my skill set is vast, right? My skill set, I'm great in person. I have the ability to be flexible. Be a wordsmith in how you want to phrase that question and address that question when you're talking with employers. I definitely think from an employer standpoint, we want people that are flexible, right? We want people that are able to wear multiple hats or adapt to a situation. So that would be my opinion on the question for sure.
Thank you, Jacob. Yes, Ashley, go ahead.
To speak to that a little bit, I completely agree with you, Jacob. I think that's really important. And I think another word, you don't necessarily have to say, you know, I'm great working at home. You can say, you know, like he said, I'm adaptable, or I'm dynamic. I'm a dynamic worker. Because what we've seen with people working from home, there are one of two type of people. There's people who work from home to avoid work, or there's people who work from home to get work done. So if there's a way that you can emphasize what kind of worker you are, every employer is looking for work ethic, regardless of what type of career you're looking at. So I think that's so important to be able to like give an example of your work ethic. So if we have to send you home to work from home, are you going to be playing with your dog all day, or are you going to be getting work done? I think that's huge.
Okay. Thank you very much for that perspective. We have another question in the chat. This is from Lori, and she would like to know if you use an ATS, so an applicant tracking system. So for those on the call who are not familiar with an applicant tracking system, that is anytime you're submitting your resume online to a virtual system, and that virtual system does some of the processing, sometimes they actually will screen resumes and determine how good of a match you are for a position. So any advice, one, do you use an applicant tracking system, and advice to those job seekers who might be using applicant tracking systems to apply for jobs? So Ashley, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
We do not, we have our own tracking like system where we manually input it, and we manually screen people looking at this. So we don't have something like that. That being said, I guess we're our own ATS system. We look for those keywords, key experiences, and things like that, but we don't use that system.
Okay. Jacob, do you all use an applicant tracking system?
Yeah, from a company's perspective as a whole, no. However, when you use the resources such as Indeed or Monster or places like that, right? You can subscribe. From our perspective, you can subscribe to have that as part of your advertising package. And so, yeah, I have some. So it just depends on the posting, right? It depends on the posting and the position that we're looking to hire. Because sometimes, yeah, you want to filter out some applicants that just aren't going to be a fit, right? I mean, one of the biggest things, at least here in Colorado Springs, we have to have people that have a clean background check, because we access federal properties such as Fort Carson, U.S. Air Force, Schriever Air Force Base, stuff like that frequently, right? So one of the things that allows us to track applicants and the criteria that has to be met is, you know, are you able to pass a background check, right? Are you able to get onto a government facility? So yeah, it helps us filter, it helps us track a little bit. It gives us kind of a query and a report. At least for me, it spits out something on a weekly basis. Yeah, you've had 97 applicants. 15 of them look like they might fit your criteria, and with on a scale of 1 to 10, like a level 8 or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I use it personally. As a company, no, we don't use it as a whole, for sure.
Thank you for that. I'll just say a couple brief things about applicant tracking systems, and then we'll open it up for other questions. Those are the only ones that we have in the chat right now. But when I'm working with students or alumni who are going to be submitting their application through a company that does use an applicant tracking system, and there are a lot of companies out there that do that, you have to make sure that you format your resume in a way that a computer can read it. So any kind of fancy pictures or columns or the infographic resumes that will have like little stars or some kind of bar showing how great you are at Microsoft Word or Excel or things like that, a computer can't really read that. So you have to make sure that you make your resume a little more simple, make it streamlined so that a computer can screen and read it. And then with any job, to Ashley's point, like regardless if it's in an applicant tracking system or not, you need to make sure that you pull out the keywords so that it's easy, make it very easy for a recruiter or a computer to see how you meet the minimum qualifications for a position, because that's going to be the biggest question. That first screening is, do they meet the minimum qualifications? And if you don't, then you'll be knocked out. And so in the applicant tracking systems, they'll actually have questions. Most of them will have questions for the minimum qualifications. So it'll say, do you have a bachelor's degree in business or related fields? And if you answer no to those questions that the system is asking, then you're automatically, typically in most organizations, automatically disqualified from being considered moving forward. So make sure you meet the mins, make sure that you are able to pull out those keywords, and then you put it in a format that a computer is able to read. And if you need help with that, you know, the Career Center or the Career Development Center in the College of Business, we're happy to help look at your resume and talk to you about applicant tracking systems and what you can do to really up your chances of making it to the second round and getting an interview. So do we have any other questions? Okay, so Danny, what's the best way to sell your skills if you are changing careers, industries, or job function? So if you're doing a career transition, what is the best way to showcase those skills? So Ashley, you said you had been working with transitioning military veterans. What would be your recommendation for career transitioners?
Oh, yes. That's an awesome question. I think certain careers just translate really well into others. So whether it's like an entrepreneurial opportunity or an analytical opportunity, I think you really need to do your due diligence on what you're applying for. Pick out those keywords and say you are a transitioning military member. You know how to stick to a system, proven work ethic. This is how many times I've been promoted within my career. Just a history of success in any career, I would say oftentimes translates really well. If you can prove that you can be successful in a career that's maybe difficult or in whatever opportunity you had prior, emphasize that, because somebody with a history of success isn't going to fail. I mean, likely is not going to fail in another career. It's just somebody who's willing to figure it out and adapt. I would say that.
Thank you. Eric, I'll go to you since I went to Jacob for the last question. Do you have any advice for career transitioners?
Yeah, I would say the same. Promote yourself. Tell us about your achievements. Don't be afraid to be a little braggadocious about the successes that you've had, specifically with military people. I've got a couple of those folks working for me that when we met, they knew nothing about our industry, but they had a proven track record of success. They had experience with leadership. Let us know that you were top notch in your previous field, and that you tell us what you bring to the table.
Great. Okay, any other questions for the panel before we wrap up today? Okay, it looks like Joanna has posted the survey link into the chat. So if you would please fill out the survey and let us know what you thought about today's webinar. And if you want to be connected with any of the panelists today, please just reach out to me. I will put my email address in the chat and let me know, and I would be happy to connect you to any of our panelists or to the chamber, the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC. Anything that we can do to help you, please let us know. And thank you again so much to Cecilia and all of our panelists today. We greatly appreciate your time helping our alumni. And I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all.